Okay, a very common question we get asked is, do you build in steel frames? Absolutely no. We do not build steel frames. Other companies build steel frames, and if you're looking for a tiny house that is steel framed, you're just best off going with them. We just refuse to use it. It's very difficult to use. It's definitely marketed as easier, and admittedly, yes, to build the frame up, it's quick and it is easy. You can zip together a steel frame in no time at all. There's no questions about that. I wouldn't take that away from the steel companies. The problem for us is to finish it off. So to finish off a steel frame, it's a very different fixing system than what you do for timber frame. It's just not worth it in our view to do steel frame, because the level of finish that we're trying to achieve is like a normal house. We want you to buy one of these tiny homes and feel like it's as good as or better than a standard house. To achieve that with steel frame, we feel like you have to, there's a lot of extra work that's required in order to make the finishes around the windows and the fixing points. There's a lot of extra gap filling and putting and sanding, and that is not something we think is good long term. There's a lot of benefits for steel. It is slightly lighter, it is termite resistant, and it is fast to initially put up. The problem with that is the timber frames that we use, they're also fast to put up. We use conventional tools that we've been using for a long period of time. So the labour cost is easier, or just as easy, with timber. And the timber frame is treated. So we use timber treated pine. And so the difference between the two, I think, is it really comes down to, can you achieve the same or better quality finish with a steel frame that you can with timber? And I would say to you, no, you can't. I think that the choice that you have in the internal linings is much more limited. And if you speak to any of the carpenters that work in my workshop, and if you were to tell them, oh, we're going to do a steel frame, they've all told me that they'll pick up their nail bag and they'll walk out. So it's very difficult to work with. So I would suggest that your labour cost will go up if you do go steel frame. If you're doing a DIY, admittedly, it'll be easier to make the frame. So you'll be pleased with the initial results, and then the brakes will come on, and for you to do all the other stuff will take a lot longer, and it'll be a lot harder to make it look really nice. All the extras, like the plumber and the electrician, every time they put a hole in the wall, they have to have rubber grommets on it to prevent any sort of wearing on the cables or pipes. Admittedly, that's pre-done in a factory, it's stamped, but if you get that wrong, or if you ask for a change, then it has to be manually done on site, and that's when the labour costs can go up. If you ring me halfway through your build, please don't do it, but it does happen, and you want to change, and I've got to move a wall, if I've got to do that in a steel frame versus a timber frame, there's no comparison on cost. If you say, oh, I want an extra window, and I've got to cut that into a steel frame versus a timber frame, there is no comparison on the cost. It's so much easier with timber. It's so much easier to make adjustments. It's so much easier to work with. It's better for the environment. It's a renewable resource, whereas steel, it's a finite material. So admittedly, yes, it's the world's most recycled material. It's fine, I accept that, but it's finite. The problem is with, the great thing about, or the problem with steel is, there's only so much steel. With timber, it is a renewable resource. So to me, the pros and cons, there's no way that steel outweighs timber. I don't believe that we can achieve as good a finish as we can with timber, and I believe that with the current weight restrictions of 4.5 tonne, I can build you a beautiful tiny house at 7.2 metres long, and that covers most people. If you want something bigger, that's very difficult to achieve, and you may go down the path of steel frame, but I think then we're moving on from wanting a tiny house. So the whole point about a tiny house is to go smaller. If you're starting to get bigger, then really maybe just get a normal house or a transportable home or something like that. So as far as tiny homes go, with our company, we will only ever use timber frame. We just will not use steel frame because I don't believe it's as environmentally friendly. It's extremely difficult to work with. It's way more expensive, and I just don't like it.